Always likes to open with a joke. It's
Conan O'Brien has hosted late-night shows for a quarter of a century. He's still funny, and he's stayed fresh and comedically relevant this whole time. How? I'm Phil Jameson, and this is Dissecting the Frog. First, let's touch on a basic comedic concept, one you may have heard of, traditionally called the comedy duo or double act.
That looks all right.
Okay, all
Now
right.
we'll pretend. All right, I'll take it easy with that.
These consist of two performers, one called the straight man and the other the funny man. The concept is illustrated well by a knock-knock joke. When one person wants to be funny and tells a knock-knock joke, there has to be someone else asking, "Who's there?" The joke relies on having the straight man to play against.
However, there is a vaccination.
Oh, no, that's Amy, that's HPV.
Oh, I'm sorry, of course.
Someone's knocking on my door, I ask who it is. Someone says something I don't understand, I ask them to explain. If the reaction is realistic and grounded, the joke can work. You can see this in most comedies at one point or another. Knock, knock.
What's wrong, Trey? Why are you sitting in your sadness spotlight?
Who's there?
I see my NBC News obituary, Jackie D. I look like a fool in it.
Set up.
Well, certainly you can't be surprised that there's a lot of negative stuff about you out there. Don't you ever Google yourself?
Set up who?
Sure, I Google myself all the time. Like when Angie's not in the mood or I'm alone in the hotel.
Punchline. So, Conan is the funny man, right? He makes jokes in the monologue, he makes jokes in the interviews. Not quite. Traditionally, yes, but now these are fundamental pieces of hosting late-night shows. They're an expectation we have of someone who's on TV at 11 p.m.
You know, other people have done it since, but at the time, what I wanted to do was have a show that looked right, but it was very wrong. Meaning, I wanted it to have the appearance of, well, he seems like a nice fellow, and there's his nice sidekick who looks sort of like a young Ed McMahon, and he seems, and there's a band, and it all seems right, but we have a masturbating bear, we have, Triumph the Insult Comic Dog, we have fake people in the audience interrupting, there's, madness exploding everywhere, and that was always my dream, and that was what I was proudest of, is I wanted it to be that, feel like it's, it looks okay, but something, and we lull people in, and then it's very wrong, and we scar them for life. That was always the idea.
So as Conan says in his interview, the format of the show serves as the straight man to the content of the show's funny man. That is, the stranger the jokes get, the more normal the show has to look. And for a late-night show, the host is the centerpiece of the format. So it wasn't just important for Conan to hire writers who were able to subvert the format of a talk show. It was also critical that he learned how to be the best late-night talk show host he could possibly be. He does a great job of it. If you watch his interviews, he knows when to let a guest deliver a punchline.
It is. When you're buying a table and someone's like, "You that bitch off."
And when his guest might need a little help.
I admitted while sitting next to George that I hadn't read the books, and now I fear for my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He may become angry now that you haven't read his books. And you'll be hit by a car, which is that doesn't happen much in that realm.
He knows how to deliver a monologue and how to go smoothly to commercial.
Great show. Tina Fey!
And that allows him to run the sketches that are, as he says, madness exploding everywhere. Because when an audience member starts yelling at a talk show host or the graphics of the show start insulting the audience, the host has to be believable when he responds. Who's there? Or why is this happening?
Okay, who just said ha?
And it's not just sketches. Guests who recognize that Conan is not only happy to have unusual things happen on his show, but also happy to help straight man them, end up with some of the funniest appearances. Nathan Fielder's backup guest.
I actually decided to bring a backup guest tonight.
I'm sorry, I've been doing this a long time. I've never heard of anyone bringing a backup guest.
I just think it would make, it would make me feel a bit better because I don't know how this is going to go. So that way, if it's not working or my story's not good, you have the ability to switch over to another guest.
I've never heard of any.
Paul Rudd showing the same clip from Mac and Me for 2 decades.
They don't like
they
it when you
take
do
this
that.
stuff very
They take
seriously.
it very seriously.
I got yelled at, and so the only way that they would let me do it is that I have to show a clip in the movie. Too.
Yes.
But I did want
Let's
to
not
show
get you into trouble
Right.
with the movie studio. Right. Here now,
the
actual clip from Role Models.
And Norm Macdonald congratulating Conan on getting The Tonight Show weeks after he'd been publicly asked to leave.
Congratulations, Conan, on finally securing your place as permanent host of The Tonight Show. That's something they can never take away from you.
These are jokes that are possible on other shows, but wouldn't quite fit. And that's because the format of Conan's entire talk show is built for them. So the talk show is engaging in a unique way, and that would probably be enough for a show to survive. But there's a second side to Conan O'Brien.
Behind me is one of the great institutions here in Harlem, Sylvia's.
Even on his own show, Conan isn't always the host. Sometimes he's a guest. Some of the most beloved and well-remembered clips from Conan are when he's doing what the show calls remotes. He might be visiting an old-timey baseball league or touring a German sausage company. The typical expectation of a tour would be that the guest learns about whatever the tour guide has to show them and lets the guide do most of the talking. But Conan is all about subverting the format, and since the typical tour guest mostly listens, the Conan tour guest mostly speaks.
Oh, love! We had none of that growing up. There was no love in the house, and let alone enough left over to put it in the food.
The format is, again, the straight man, but this time, Conan fills the role of funny man. Though, as a host, Conan is polite and always defers to his guests, as a guest, he's abrasive or awkward or selfish. He uses his status as a celebrity to embarrass or frustrate his host.
We find that the chocolate chip cookie overshadows the effort.
This is my favorite right now.
Of course, and this is critical, the host is in on the joke, so it's never mean, just funny. It's unusual to see a tourism clip where the guest says this.
What is that? That looks Zülze. Oh, I have to tell you, that looks awful. It just looks like someone was in a horrible accident.
But the hosts know what they're getting into, so it's okay. Sometimes he'll bring someone with him, and that someone is often Jordan Schlansky. Having a grounded guest who isn't making jokes is a fantastic way to highlight that Conan is the unusual one. When Jordan Schlansky speaks, he's not trying to be funny. He's fulfilling his role as a guest, reacting with his honest opinions or sometimes just standing there.
Is chocolate. Isn't that called cocoa? Isn't that what kids drink?
Conan is able to play off him specifically because of this, not in spite of it. His remotes can also be in the Conan office. The expectation of a talk show host giving us a look behind the scenes is that they would highlight their positive traits.
A few years ago, someone stole my really nice headphones right off my desk.
I'll pay for it. How much are they worth? No, seriously.
But instead, Conan plays, again, a pompous, self-obsessed boss.
Like $500.
Oh, that's way too much. I didn't think it was going to be that. I think it was going to be like $40.
I
won't pay you for that.
Headphones go for these days.
No, I don't.
And as always, it's clear that it's all in fun. So we have host Conan, who plays mostly straight, and remote Conan, who plays mostly funny. Host Conan makes guests look good, and remote Conan makes hosts laugh. The juxtaposition between the two makes each of them stronger. The more host Conan fulfills his role as a straight man, the less we expect him to be rude to a coffee roaster. And the more jokes he makes during a remote, the more off guard will be caught when a guest says something funny and gets a laugh out of him.
On your show, do you want to go 50-50 on that, or?
These two characters fulfill a virtuous cycle of comedy that keeps you on your toes, and I think that's why, after 25 years, the show still feels fresh.